Alright. Next matchup will be Mishi versus QQ. Very excited for this one, as Mishi is considered the best of the best, while QQ is probably one of the most unorthodox players that probably anyone has really ever seen in competitive. So it's gonna be an exciting one. Let's get things going. As Two Mews, aka QQ, will be rocking the long coat up in the north, while Mishi in the red is gonna be rocking it out in the south. Now, obviously with Mishi here going for the pretty much not too unorthodox, I guess a little bit unorthodox, with the squirrels as the major tier 1 with the dash bit of pigeon and a skunk snake combination along with the falcon and the balloon. So it's pretty unorthodox. Meanwhile, for QQ, he lives and breathes the unorthodox. Though this one isn't like too bad, but we do have the squizzard with the ferret, skunk, and a boar, as well as the falcon as well. So I imagine that this is going to be a very interesting matchup here between these three. Mishi kind of going for more of a it's weird because it kind of is passive, but it kind of isn't. Meanwhile, for QQ, he's essentially going to be going for a very aggressive type of play, as the lizards are going to come out. Maybe we could probably do some cheesiness a little bit, as the full 8 farms are out and about, while we do have a skunk coming into play, so that could probably be taken out very quickly, as QQ is going to throw in some squirrels into the mix. I don't think he's going to have enough time to be able to stop this from happening, though, with the fact that the skunks are out, and Mishi also has 2 squirrels to attach to boot. Now, looking at the map, we do have, I will say that the mill advantage will definitely go to Mishi, but not by much. While, yes, he has a pretty much an easier access to get all these mills right here, they are a little bit out and about and can easily be sniped if not too careful. Meanwhile, for QQ, he only really has this one that's available, and it's a bit of a weird way to get to that particular mill to do some damage. So he's gonna have to be a little bit creative. May have the base one base this, but he does find interesting ways to make any kind of disadvantage to kind of throw over the head. So that's gonna be interesting to play around with. Now, looking at the current build so far, QQ definitely has the army advantage, it looks like, with the 4 falcons coming on the way, as well as a good mix of DPS with the lizards, and obviously there was a battle here as 1 pig does go down, but with the amount of lizards and squirrels to come into the play, he looks like he's going to go for another attack again, but actually, he may consider trying to go for a... Nope, he's not going to go for a mill. He's just going to try and see if he can be a gremlin and take something else. But I don't think there really is much he can do here, as Mishi basically has the full composition now, and he is going to drop some snakes. So I think that QQ is going to go home. He is going to do that, as there really is no good angle to try and stop Mishi from doing this. So with that in mind, he decides to go ahead and get... Sorry about that. So apologies. Accidentally unhooked my mic, but I'll probably do some editing there for that one. Anywho, we do see that QQ is going to go ahead and start building up another mill here. But meanwhile, he does leave his army exposed, as it's going to be easy pickings for the pre-gas for the skunks. And now he's kind of forced himself to get into this battle here. Not a good advantage there for QQ, as a good percent of his tier 1 goes down from that fight. But now he's going to try and push into it, as a couple of skunks go down as well. We do see a Warren go down, but now the snake comes into play. And it's looking like that snake is going to get plenty of value as majority of the tier 1 goes down. It looks like Mishi is just struggling trying to get things going. Had the advantage at one point, but QQ was very quick to try and turn things around and is looking to possibly push in even more so, but does decide to finally go back home as the snake was still getting a lot of value against the tier 1 units. And Mishi was looking to possibly go for a counter, but I think he realized he doesn't have nearly enough units to do a proper counter attack, so he does just end up just staying home. Now, QQ has a really good opportunity for taking this wholeheartedly, because now he's definitely ahead on the eco position as he started his second mill, and Mishi is just now getting his second mill, while QQ is just kind of vibing a little bit here as he just awaits for his full composition to be fully finished, as he goes with the skunk falcon combination, while Mishi is rocking the snake skunk combination. And snake skunk is a very difficult thing to master. I haven't tried it myself, so I don't really know too much. I haven't really used snake as often because they are pretty good use for rushes in games, trying to be a little gremlin and take out economy. But it's definitely a very difficult thing for snakes to really do, as we do see another battle being commenced as the first mill does go down for QQ. Well, for Mishi, excuse me. And it looks like that QQ is going to go ahead and start cleaning house as a majority of the thing go down, but the snake is still doing a lot of damage as all the snakes go down while Mishi is starving. And Mishi is just gonna go ahead and poison the pig, as that's all he can really do, as most of his is gonna be gone, as Mishi has to start selling quite a bit of units to be able to get back into the game. But it's really looking like it's gonna be QQ's to win, in all honesty. After these last two brutal matches, it's gonna be hard to see that Mishi would come back from this. But it's kind of interesting that even though the two snakes are probably going to be the best counter, as he does prevent the starve game from happening, Mishi, there really isn't a tier 2 for QQ, because he did decide to sell his falcons, which is interesting. I would have probably sold the lizards in this case, because the lizard are just going to be easy bait for the snakes, as we're seeing here. Both snakes do go down, but with the skunks are just doing cleanup once again, as none of the tier 1 is going to be able to take everything out except for the one skunk. So Mishi is once again starving, so he does sell both snakes, going for the tier 1, does buy a food, or does buy a pig once again. And now it looks like it's going to be a squirrel versus squirrel action between these two, as QQ doesn't have any more farm available for this one, so now all he has is this. So this is kind of a very, very scrappy game so far. Meanwhile, Mishi is only going to be rocking with a inferior number of squirrels, so it'll be interesting how this plays out. It's just all really depending on the micro that gets played here, and it's looking like QQ is going to take out a majority of the squirrels, and QQ will take game 1 as he goes ahead and takes the early lead. Great matchup there for QQ, as he is looking to make a statement here in this game. So now we're going to be going into game number 2 between Mishi and QQ. So QQ rocket the blue on the west side, while Mishi is going to be in the red on the east side. Now for QQ, he is going to go for a squad with the Badger getting some backup from the Pigeons, as well as the Skunk Falcon. Meanwhile, Mishi will be rocking the Squirrel as his mandatory first unit with Pigeon, as well as the Skunk Falcon with the Wolf and the Balloon as his units. So looking at the map in its entirety, I would have to say that I don't really imagine these mills coming into play at all, as they are very, very close to one another. And unless some major shenanigans go down and one of these two decides to, like, to say bump it and just decide to move to a completely different base and start anew, I don't think that there is any reason for them to come home. Meanwhile, for when it comes to these bases right here, I would say that it's kind of even Steven. You probably can give the advantage to Mishi a little bit with the second meal being available almost immediately. Well, Team Muse does have the well, QQ has a little bit of the he does have one that's right here as well, but this one's gonna get fought for a lot. This one definitely could get fought for quite a bit, but I do think that Mishi's third base being kind of a little bit out there on lower ground, also being surrounded by a whole bunch of water, you can't really get a lot of units on there, really. So it'll be kind of tough to play around with unless he had like owls or something, but it's certainly an interesting start for both these squads. Now for QQ, he's going to start off with some Squad. Does have the Squirrels and the Toads on the ready. Looking to be a little bit of a gremlin to prevent Mishi from going home, as he is just desperately trying to find a way to go home, but he ends up dying. As he does quickly buy his second mill, and he's looking to possibly try to take advantage of this and go after Mishi for an early attack, but yeah, he's gonna go for it. He's gonna go for this attack right here. The Skunks are out though, so I don't know if this is the wisest decision. The pre-gas is coming down. The Toads are trying to get as much value as possible, but it does not gonna matter as the Skunk is just making all kinds of work against QQ's tier 1. That wasn't really the wisest decision from QQ. Considering the fact that the Skunk was there, you probably want to leave immediately knowing that the Skunks are there. So now QQ is going to be behind by quite a bit here, as the second set of Skunks are coming from Mishi, as well as the increasing the squirrel count for Mishi as well. While for QQ, he does have quite a good number of tier 1 units, but that's going to get countered very easily with the Skunks. He does sell his Toes to get into some of the tier 2 as well to try to even things out, but he is going to try to see if he can get the superior squirrel count, but Mishi is already ready to go and is looking to possibly do some damage before QQ is even ready. So this pre-gas is really coming into play here. A lot of the squirrels are going down. Now the pigs are getting attacked. This is not really a good look here for QQ, as he does end up taking the high risk. And it's looking like this is going to be Mishi's dub, as he is looking to try and tie things back up, as the majority of the economy is down. A lot of Warrens is out, and QQ does decide to tap, and Mishi will be taking game number 2. I will say I think the biggest battle for that one in particular will have to go to the fight against the Skunks when you really didn't need to. Like I said, having the superior tier 1 number can be very important in the early game, but once the tier 2 goes down, you're playing a very risky game once the tier 2 goes out, if you don't rush that quickly. So especially when it goes against Skunk, because Skunk is known for the tier 2, well, it is known to be a good cleanup crew when it comes to trying to clear out tier 1. So that's definitely not something that you really want to do, is to try and charge into tier into a tier 2 like the Skunk, because that's just going to be asking for disaster on your end. But in any case, we are going to guarantee ourselves a game 4. Could we get a game 5? We'll have to wait and see as we get to game 3 for Mishi and QQ. So, on the west side, we do have QQ in the blue, while east side, we are going to have Mishi in the red. As Mishi is not going to change things up, it looks like, from this composition. But QQ, once again, deciding to mix things up a bit. He loves doing that. As he goes ahead and have 2 tier 3s in the Badger and Fox, as well as the Pigeon with the Squirrel, and going for a MG artillery composition. No tier 2 whatsoever this comp. So that makes things a very spicy comp from QQ. And this is what I'm talking about when it comes to being the off-meta king, when it comes to the way QQ plays. He is always trying to find creative ways to go up against his opponent, and I can imagine it can be a little bit of a nightmare to try and strategize against what kind of composition he can come up with next, because it's so different from each other. He has a lot of variety when it comes to his gameplay, and that's why he's one of my favorite to watch, in all honesty. But of course, both players doing the gentleman's 8, going for the standard tier 1 Warrens here. Mishi being a little bit greedy with deciding to go ahead and already get his second mill. So going pretty greedy in the economy, and QQ is going to go ahead and follow suit, as he probably imagined that Mishi was definitely going to do that. So he does end up going home, thankfully, without having to be interrupted by some pesky squirrels, and does put in a third Warren of his own, as both sides really just trying to match each other up so far when it comes to the economy and the army. Now, QQ is once again trying to go for an attack here, but he decides he is trying to look for a certain angle to possibly get some kind of value. Probably going to aim for one of the home-based pigs, and he is going to do just that. Will be able to get at least 1. He will get 2. Could he get a third? He will get 3, and he does go on home. So great value there for QQ. He does lose a couple of squirrels, but why? Okay, he decides to go ahead and cancel his squirrels entirely, and now he's trying to go ahead and bring some MGs out, and Misha's going to go ahead and go through with this counterattack, as he was able to catch up to those squirrels and take them out, and he could lose an entire mill here if he's not careful. And it's looking like that's going to be the case, as 2 farms do go down. So while you can definitely say QQ does take more pigs out, I will say, considering the fact that the pigs that Mishi took were fresher, that's definitely not something you want to see in that predicament. Not a great, really good attack there, but really kind of slipped by allowing his tier 1 units to go down like that and allowing a counter attack to occur. So now we're seeing an artillery coming out from QQ as well. So now we're seeing that Mishi's going to go ahead. He does see it, and he is going to respond very swiftly by getting another tier 2 unit, as the skunks are now coming out to play. So right now, QQ going all in on the 16 farms, while Mishi is just going to continue to try and tech up, but he will try and match that. And that's what makes this interesting, is the fact that, well, we are going to see some cliff abuse from Mishi, as he is looking like that he might lose this mill, but the artillery does come out just in time. But the artillery is only going to take out the tier 1 unit. He has nothing to defend the mill against the Falcons, and that mill will eventually go down. And that is such a bad situation there for QQ. Really has a great, the artillery is great for taking out the ground units, but when it comes to flying units, it's not going to do much. The Badger is going to come out, but it's gonna be rough. It's gonna be a really rough situation because once that third one is done, he's gonna try and desperately go for this one here instead, but I'm not sure if that's gonna be enough because now he's sorely behind on economy as Mishi is fully decked out economy wise, and he can just do just about anything he wants now. So both players are kind of doing some floating a little bit, but the wolf is now going to come down for Mishi, and now the timer is really going to start as we do see a second Badger unit warrant coming out, but the first one is going to be bought, so one is going to be on the way, and QQ is going to have to start farming from this one instead. Though he probably will have to end up selling those 2 MGs right here and probably place them right around here somewhere to get some protection. He does get the 2 MGs over there, but he is leaving the 2 MGs on this end as well, which I'm not too sure about that. I'm not too sure. I don't know. But now Mishi is going to go ahead and bin in a couple of balloons. Also, the wolf is about to come out very, very soon. QQ does sell the other Badger, it looks like. Trying to at least try to get some kind of army for this upcoming fight, because it is coming, and it is coming right now. The wolf is out, ready to go, and this is really looking like a lot of trouble for QQ to handle, as the Falcons might be the ones to start things off first and foremost, as the pre-skunk, the pre-gas is coming in for the skunks, and now we're seeing a little bit of abuse against the mill. The mill's gonna go down. Majority of the army's gonna go down for QQ. QQ is now starving, and he is going to lose the Badger, and that's going to be game number 3 going over to Mishi. So yeah, that's basically the situation there. So Mishi does take game number 3. We're going to go ahead and get into game 4. So, game number 4. Can QQ tie things up and take it to game 5? Or will Mishi take the whole thing? We'll see how things go as the two rock it out. As QQ will be rocking the long coats, excuse me, and Mishi will be rocking the common folks. So, looking at the compositions, Mishi's gonna keep things the same, while QQ has... Did he change it up? Yeah, he changed it up. He changed it up once again for a somewhat more standard deck. The only thing that's a little unorthodox is the ferrets again, but outside of that, pretty much a composition you would expect. But we do see some cheesiness from QQ deciding to go ahead and bring out the squirrel. So Mishi decided to do the same thing. Ooh, excuse me. And QQ deciding to sell the one farm, probably looking into possibly getting as many squirrels as possible in the early going, but decides to go ahead and opt into... I'm not sure what he's planning on doing, to be honest. He buys it and then sells it again. I think he's a little bit worried of a possible rush coming, but Mishi is just, you know, just vibing. Does get his second tier 1 warrant out in the squirrels. He will put out down a third as well. Meanwhile, QQ is trying to see if he can do some gremlin moves, but he is going to take one pig out, and that's probably all he's going to take, as everyone dies, including his commander. So taking out a pig is not too bad, but nothing to really like write home about as that trade. But now QQ isn't going to take advantage to try and have the extra lead on economy. Instead, just going to put in another Squirrel Warren. Just rocking 7 farms at the moment. Meanwhile, Mishi is fully farmed up. Excuse me. Mishi's fully farmed up. And he could possibly look into putting another Warren down. It looks like a tier 2 maybe. As he does wait for the 120. And he does put down the skunks. So now he's going to be a little bit of an advantage. I'm sure. Yep. There's QQ now finally decides to go ahead and put down that 8th farm. And he will try and counter with the lizards here. But once he sees that tier 2, I would imagine he might sell at least one of them to possibly even out the score. But he might not need to, considering he's already very close to getting the 120. But no, he does sell to get in a couple of falcons. And now he's going to try and use only 3 lizards here to possibly do some damage. But I don't think it's going to work out, especially with that area being blocked off. So he might well just go home, not worry about it. I think it was trying to see if he can find a different angle, but with this area being blocked, there was just no way. Especially with the fact that he probably has to go the long way around just to get to that point, and the crowd's going to be already at the ready. But now Mishi is going to go ahead and start his Gremlin Boy hours, as QQ is trying to prepare for something for this attack, as Mishi's trying to go for the pre-gas. But of course, QQ is trying to lead off with the Falcons. So now the Skunks are really doing a lot of good cleanup here, as both tier 1s have basically just been cut open. Mishi getting some great value with the Skunks, but the Falcons are also doing some pretty good things as well. And when you go for a Skunk versus Falcon game, the Falcons are going to give you that W every time. But of course, Mishi's reinforcements do come back, so Mishi still wants to try and be aggressive here. One pick does go down for QQ. QQ is going to decide to tap, as he was overwhelmed by Mishi in that battle. So Mishi will be taking the series 3-1.